Construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum, and we're here for another amazing episode of Construction Champions Podcast, where, as always, we're burning the damn house down. And that's your business, it's your life, it's your relationships, it's anything that is keeping you from being the construction champion that you're meant to be. And then we bring amazing guests on here, they build you back up. It's kumbaya, and we have an amazing life together. But we're here to change the mindset around the construction industry forever. And that's why I do this. And today we have an amazing guest, just like every other episode. But me and Omar has gotten to know each other a little bit here over this last year. So I'm excited for today. Omar, it is fantastic to have you here today on Construction Champions Podcast.
Hey Ron, nice to meet you. Great to be here.
Awesome, man. Why don't you take a minute or two or however long you need and introduce yourself to all the construction champions out there?
Absolutely, absolutely. Hey, so nice to meet you all. My name is Omar. I am a construction enthusiast, founder of a startup. Haven't spent in the industry for the past 13 years, seen it all from early pre-construction, design engineering to construction side. And for the past 6, 7 years, I've been working in the construction tech space. Long story short, built more than 7 million square feet of multiple project developments from, warehousing to commercial to multifamily residential, hospitality as well. I've seen it all across different countries and excited to share my experience here today.
Awesome. I love it. Omar's a little bit on the humble side of things. Omar deals in big time, big construction. Like I look at it as I mean, it might have been a big dog in residential construction, but like I'm just as little residential construction guy. I mean, Omar, he can be like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. I'll tell you, he's built some big projects and been involved in some big projects. So I'm super excited for today. Let's ask the $1 million question, man. And that is, what makes a construction champion?
Ever found yourself revisiting a project because of a small miscommunication? It's frustrating and costly. That's why I switched to BuilderComms. Their construction communication management solution cuts through the noise, ensuring my team is always on the same page. Now, missteps are rare and rework is a thing of the past. Ready to streamline your projects? Check out BuilderComms today.
Yeah, that's a really $1 million question, honestly. I think things are changing right now, so I believe that the future construction champion is a visionary leaders who combine cutting edge technology, best sustainability practices that's out there with the data-driven strategies to create resilient, efficient, and impactful projects within the built environment. So that's my definition of the future construction champions. There is a bit of a path towards that, but I believe with the help of the industry and community and communication, we'll all be able to get there sooner than later. Yeah.
I love it. First person that's come on here and talked about the future. I'm a natural visionary, so let's talk about the future because I love where you're going with where the future construction champion. What does that look like? And you bring up points that are major pain points in the construction industry. In order to fulfill that, there's some barriers we have to overcome as an industry. What is that, Pat? Can you break some of that down for us? How do you see us getting there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there is a lot of basically pieces that involves that transition, and we are already seeing it across the board today, right? So first of all, when I look at the industry as a whole, we definitely need to sort of better understand the internal incentives of different stakeholders that are involved within the sort of a typical project delivery process from like owner to consultants to general contractors to subcontractors, right? And kind of identifying what is gonna change going forward, right? What is that incentive structure is going to look like 5 years, 10 years from now, right? So that's kind of like one piece of by its own, right? The second piece that I really believe is a tech disruption, right? So we are seeing a lot of amazing software and hardware solutions that are penetrating our industry. And I believe with the advent of AI and AI-driven solutions, we start seeing more and more of, efficiencies being gained across different stakeholders. That's inevitably is going to impact what the industry is going to look like. So we can kind of decompose that into two pieces. But I think one of the most important piece here is humans, right? And what the humans and professionals in this industry is gonna bring to the table, right? And we have been, talking about it for the past 5 years with the labor shortages, with the challenges of finding the right, trades, subcontractors, and contractors in different regions to be able to deliver these projects. There's a lot of work has been put in by different companies in this space, and I think the future generation of construction workforce is going to be completely different in their understanding of what the project delivery is, and they'll be able to really become those leaders that I was talking about earlier. So yeah, that's kind of
I
the
love that. So, with that being said, of course, I got something in my eye there. Is it the education that is now available? Like with a lot of this software around people, and it's designed to educate people, bring them up to speed. What's happening in construction? How do you do your job better? Do you believe like that's what's going to help bridge that gap for the construction employees?
absolutely yes. And we've seen multiple apprenticeship programs that are picking up right now across the board, right? Trade schools. And, if you even compare an average project manager today to an average project manager 5 or 10 years ago, you'll see them, being almost, very like data-driven, very technology-friendly folks these days, right? Compared to what we used to see before, right? So, there's a definitely progress in the way this whole thing evolves. And I've been just recently at the Trimble conference in Vegas, and there was a whole sessions related to the future workforce around different apprenticeship programs, around different educational programs that really, curving the path forward to really bring innovative educational programs to really bring that knowledge to the folks. So that's basically my 2 cents, the way I look at it. Another interesting, angle is that these folks, um, the students, even the college, typical civil engineering syllabus programs in the colleges and the graduate degrees as well, they really start reinventing themselves, trying to better sort of reflect the reality of today's job sites.
Okay.
And I have personally been, talking to professors from, different colleges where they were really interested to learn more about, how could we improve our curriculum, how can we better add different chapters to basically better reflect the reality. So there's a push coming up from bottoms up, right? So that's kind
Yeah.
of
I like that. I didn't know that was going on, but that's amazing because I remember when I showed up on the job site day one. No, and everybody around me had construction management degrees, and I thought in my mind like that was a handicap that I didn't, but it really didn't matter. I was able to outwork everybody, and they had a construction management degree, but they had no real experience on a job site. So we were actually starting from zero because they don't teach that kind of stuff.
right.
All they had was that construction management degree. And I've heard a lot of the same stuff. It's like these engineers, these people, they show up, they went to school to do this for construction, but they have literally never practically had to look at the blueprints and figure this stuff out in real time on a job site. And that's a problem. So they're reaching out and they're going to start structuring that education. So these guys, when they hit the ground running already, and I think that's one of the big, like, I think anything that you do, you can do in construction, but there's a learning curve when it comes to working in construction. But once you get over that learning curve, like you can be a rock star no matter what your degree is.
Yeah, totally relatable. I mean, one experience from my college degree, and I did my undergrad in civil engineering. And remember, like after my third year of a college, I went to do an internship for one of the sort of a shopping malls back home, and I was essentially recruited as a site inspection engineer, right? And the first day I showed up on the on the job site, it was literally like, I've never known anything, right? Because like the traditional civil engineering syllabus like never teach you on like, specific aspects of site inspection, and being on the job site is a completely different experience from what you study in the classroom, right? So bridging that gap between like classroom and the job is what's gonna set this industry forward, and help it really propel forward.
I love that because I agree. Like that's the kind of stuff. It's how do we it's not even lowering the barrier to entry. It's like I'm in software, so it's like adaption. Like it's how do we lower the barrier of adaption? Like that's the problem. We talk about all these great solutions. How do we get everybody on the same page utilizing them? It's the same thing as when you have people going in these apprentice programs that are learning the nuts and bolts of
Yeah.
it, but it's like how does that practically apply? Somebody spends 9 months in a plumber apprenticeship somewhere at a school. How does that then apply laying pipe in a house? And it's how do we get through that hump and figuring out how to do that? You'll be a master. Like if somebody just understands how to do that and they can teach that, like that is amazing. And
Absolutely.
I think so. Omar is what I would say for everybody listening, because he runs a program where he gets a lot of information. I'm sure we're talking about AI because he does some stuff with AI just a little bit. But I would say he's probably one of the most up-to-date people in what's happening in construction that I know every time I talk to him. He just knows because of some of the stuff that he does in order to be able to gather these data points to understand this stuff. Could you tell the listeners out there a little bit about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll probably start with the fact that I am a co-founder of a company called Surface. And we are essentially building a platform for repeatable project management of construction workflows, right? So in a nutshell, we are trying to build a project management AI assistant, right? That supports project managers, repeatable tasks all the way from early feasibility stage to, pre-construction, design engineering, bidding, and all the way to construction commissioning, right? So we have been kind of working on developing this concept of what the future of multi-agentic, project management is going to look like in the industry, right? And we have a couple of thoughts around like, focusing on the, highly repeatable project builds, and essentially taking it all the way forward to essentially define what the future of, semi-autonomous construction or autonomous construction is going to look like. A lot of people talk about autonomous driving, right, as a very set term in car industry, right? But nobody has started talking about what is autonomous construction might mean, right? So in that sense, we are trying to kind of devise a strategy of what the future of construction is going to look like. So that's sort of a venture of itself, right? But in order for us to really understand what needs to be built and how to cater to the customers, we really started with like taking a step back and trying to understand what the people even talking about, right, in the industry, right? What are they thinking about? What is their approach? What are they reading? What they are listening to, right? And that sort of brought us to, start with this sort of initiative where we really try to gather all different resources that's available out there, best practices around construction, and try to understand what would be interesting thing to start applying AI to better understand, right? And that's what brought us to the world of the podcast, right? Podcast has been a very mature industry in some sectors, but construction, unfortunately, traditionally behind. even from a podcast standpoint, we're seeing like a big surge of interest by professional in the industry to really catch up with the insights, knowledge, best practices, and just stay on top of the what's going on in the industry, right? So there's a lot of podcasts that came over the past couple of years, and we as a team kind of started breaking it down and thinking about the way how could we aggregate all the knowledge that's being voiced out during these podcast episodes like this one today, and aggregate that in a very simple form to be able to give people in the industry easier access to get to that episodes, right? So we've built an engine using obviously our own technology, agentic AI, to essentially transcribe all the podcasts within the AEC, broader AEC industry, architecture, engineering, construction industry across the world, listen to every single episode, summarize that episode to a couple of sentences, and supply that on a monthly basis in the form of a newsletter or digest. And our goal here is not to take someone's, knowledge or someone's work, but we are actually providing an easier access for people to just like read a few sentences about the nice episode that came out recently about, let's say, robotics, and be able to kind of drill down into that link and spend an hour listening to that podcast, right, where they will really want to like kind of get more knowledge. So that's kind of the long story of how the Voice of Construction came together. We've started this in August, released 4 digests so far. The November digest is right around the corner, and we're really excited about this. We have a couple of hundred, followers reading our newsletter, and our goal is to essentially bring the latest of the not only technology side, but best project management practices, best entrepreneurial practices. If let's say you're running your own trade or building your own subcontracting company, as well as just leadership aspects of construction industry, and there's a whole separate podcast that are just covering the women in construction, right? So there's a lot of interesting things that are happening in the industry, and our goal is to just be able to like provide that knowledge closer to the folks and easier for them to be able to access it.
Well, I mean, I love it because I think like that data, like have like that, and like being able to take trends and understand what are people currently talking about. That's how you can sit here and talk about what does a future construction champion look like. Because like you're not just saying this because this is what Omar thinks. Like I
Yeah.
have data to back this up, and I think that's what people miss a lot of times when they're making decisions. What does this look like, especially in construction, is we can make some emotional decisions and you can see, like I'm on you guys. I'm one of the people that get the newsletter, and I look over it, and like you can see trends of what's currently happening in the construction industry and where the industry is going just by those like couple sentences from an episode. And I'm one. I told you from day one, like getting the information out there is what matters to me. It doesn't matter how it gets out there. Like this isn't about Ron Nussbaum doing something, owning the content, and like you. I send every episode's final recording to the person that was on it. Like this is about getting this information to the construction industry. So that's what I love about what you're doing because you're taking a different route to get content that is sitting there that needs to be disseminated, that needs to be broken down, because not everybody has 30, 40 minutes to go listen to a podcast that can easily read this and say, I want to listen to that one. That one speaks to what I'm doing. And I think that's amazing because it just makes you lower the barrier to entry to the knowledge so much. And that to me is amazing.
Yeah, no, thank you. You just hit the point here exactly. Like, a lot of people just want to stay, informed and inspired about certain topics, right? And like they just sometimes don't even know that about that certain podcasts exist, right? Or that there's a special guest that came into a certain podcast that and they had like an amazing conversation, let's say about like critical path method of scheduling, right? And somebody who just spends like, day and night working in the project controls team and doing like, building out the schedules, right? in order for him or her to be just, progressing within their careers, right? They want to start, they want to be informed. They want to know that what's going on out there, what people are talking about, and how I, as early stage in my career or in mid stage, want to learn more and be able to progress within the career ladder going forward, right? So these are different things that comes into the scene, right? In terms of like insights and trends, I mean, literally every time we run um, through the podcast that came out, obviously, I mean, AI just comes in pretty much in 90% of the episodes, fortunately or unfortunately, right? Everybody touches the AI. Um, Another interesting aspects that I've started noticing is that people really talk about the motivation of like leadership topics, generally speaking, but also motivation of like, their employees, their project teams, and how to really, create that, champion mindset, right? In everybody, right? Either you are just doing, uh, you know, procurement, or you are essentially doing like a project engineer's job or superintendent on the job site. How do you motivate each other? How do you build that, system of, clear communication across the site, and kind of going back all the way to the incentives that I talked about earlier, right? And that's sort of what's changing with this podcast is like a lot of people are figuring out and adding a lot of interesting programs, team activities, compulsory reading materials for the job site teams to just kind of learn and motivate themselves internally.
Well, what I love, so I used to always tell people like there's so much information out on podcasts. Like you just need to find one that you like the host or you like the content around it, and you'll learn so much. It's why I think it's one of the biggest educational resources. I think it's one of the biggest things that construction business owners overlook on an asset where you can literally. I always use Tommy Melo as an example because his podcast is literally the last 10 years of him building his business from like 10 million to over 200 million in revenue. And
Right.
like you can watch the progression through it. Like there's nowhere else you can do that. But what you're doing is you're taking that a step farther because now it's like it doesn't even matter about the show or the host or what it's about. This is what they're talking about. Does this bring value to you? And if yes, watch this episode. So now instead of having to like be committed to, we'll say, Construction Champions podcast because somehow, some way you relate to Ron. So this is what you tune into. But we bring on a lot of different guests that talk about a lot of different stuff because I feel like that is like, how do you have this broad reach to impact everybody in construction? So we're not like we don't say super narrow on one subject, which can be a deterrent. But what it does is now you can go get on your mailing list for what you guys do, and you can look and say, this is the subject that I'm like, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I need to learn about, and find the podcasts that are talking about it in the construction realm. And to me, that's amazing because I just believe whether you're getting it here on Construction Champions or somewhere else, if you're not listening to podcasts and you run a construction business or you manage a construction business, like you're doing yourself a disservice.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the information is just out there, right? The best practices is out there. Someone's mistakes are already out there, right? And everything you need to do is just, put a podcast, find that podcast, number one, right? Where we are actually trying to help here, and listen to that podcast episode on your way back home, right? And you could save yourself time, money, quality of the work that you deliver to your customer, right? So all that being combined is essentially what we are trying to bring to the industry. And as we do this, we're trying to talk to folks and understand better what their internal motives, what they actually care about, what different pain points that they experience in their daily operations, right? And that's sort of what dictates and helps us to better understand how we want to even build our own, startup going forward, right? So these are like sort of win-win scenarios for everybody in the industry, right?
Absolutely, man. I mean, I love it. I'm a fan. I told you that from day one that I think your approach to this is completely out of the box, and that's what the construction industry needs. I mean, I'm a status quo challenger by heart, and that's what you're doing. Like, you're not just like trying to disrupt this, you're like trying to learn, understand, get the data, and then say that right there is it. Like, that's how we fix this right here. And that is how we create future champions, is by looking at what is the future needs going to be, man. So I love it. I absolutely love it, man.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
So, for all the construction champions out there listening, if they wanted to connect with you, get on that mailing list, follow you, learn more about what you have going on, where is the best places for them to do that?
Yeah, number one, I am pretty active in LinkedIn. So I am Omar Zhan, Zhan. You'll be able to see that below this podcast. But yeah, feel free to send me a friend request. Let's connect. Let's chat more about the industry. If you want to learn more about AI, we can always chat about that as well. In terms of the podcast, you can always go to my LinkedIn page, and I have essentially a digest link right there at the top of my profile, so you can subscribe to it. If you have any feedback in terms of how to make it better, how to make it more curated to what you're looking for, always feel free to reach out and provide some feedback. So I'm out there, always happy to chat with folks. So just feel free to reach out, and we're gonna set something up.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time and being on the show today.
Thank you, Ron. Thank you very much. I wish all the best to this podcast, and yeah, hope to see you soon around and with more exciting updates from both sides.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Eventually, I got to make it out to California. I meet all kinds of people from out there, but I'm on the opposite coast. But one day I'll make it out there. So
Please, you'll be my guest.
awesome. All right, construction champions, another episode in the bag where we talked about not just being a champion, but being a champion in the future. And that got me thinking here is, it's the end of the year. We've set all these goals. We know what we're chasing. But when we're doing all of that, like, do we ever look at it like, what does that future champion look like? And I think, I have to think that the Kobe's, the Jordans, the Tom Brady's were never really focusing on what it meant to be a champion right now, because they knew what it took to be one right now, because they were one. What they were always concerned about was, can I continue to be one? And what does it take to be a champion in the future? So, as you set these goals, as you're chasing your goals in 2025, I want you to think about that. Like, if you feel like you're a champion already, what does the future champion look like? Like, what does that look like for me to continue to be this champion in the construction industry, and for my employees, for my family, for everybody around me? Because if we're not evolving, if we're not thinking about what that future looks like from a championship perspective, you don't get there, because somebody else comes along that was thinking about the future and being that future champion. So, construction champions, make sure you check out all of our fantastic sponsors. And until next time, be the champion you were meant to be. Hey, construction champions, it's your host, Ron Nussbaum here. And I want to talk to you about how you can automate all of your marketing. We've had so many people on here talk about getting the systems in place. Well, we have partnered with Build 12 and Construction Champions podcast. Les O'Hara, the founder, what really excites me is his 30 years in the industry. And now he's built a system to be able to nurture your leads and continue to utilize that. I personally use the system myself. Build 12 is absolutely amazing. There's a lot of value in there, and it's a way to start getting away from Angie's List and all of that kind of stuff, and start actually creating your own leads every day and have a system for them. So go on our website, check out the show notes, go check out Build 12. And
Introducing HomeTrack. We create digital new home profiles using homeowner specifications, pictures, and warranty policies, replacing the large paper binders normally provided by home builders to their buyers. We also digitize the final blue tape walkthrough and instantly create a punch list that both builders and homeowners can track until a resolution. By simplifying the handover process, we are saving home builders time and money.